Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leader in rushing, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. So wanted to jump in here and give you guys the latest update on the Jeff Hafley coaching, what do we say here? Interview carousel, if you will. Obviously, he's got multiple interviews lined up. I think they said there was 5 interviews over the next 24 to 48 hours that Jeff Hafley has lined up. We want to kind of filter through the noise and see, okay, which team do we feel like Jeff Hafley is most likely to land at if he does get a head coaching job, to give us a better understanding of whether or not Jeff Hafley will be back in Green Bay? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about where his defense ranked. We'll also talk about a little Mike McDaniel's update on the backside of the show as well, and kind of talk about, will he potentially be interviewed by Green Bay for an OC spot if indeed Matt LaFleur decides to move on from Adam Stenavich, or maybe demote him, whatever may happen there to try to get this run game back on track. We're still waiting to hear information on Matt LaFleur and whether or not he'll be back in Green Bay. That's still up in the air as well. We'll discuss it all. Before we do, if you would, do that YouTube stuff for me. Hit like, hit subscribe, click the bell icon so you're notified when we go live here in the future. Welcome into PTA. Thank you for making us a part of your day. We're not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. People ask, why do you say that, Clayton? Because I want to be very, very clear on the show. We are a fan-driven show, a fan-based show. We're not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans just like you, talking Packers on a daily basis. That's not a shot at the media. That's not a shot at anybody in between. It's just we want to make sure you understand we're fans talking about the game in here, talking about the latest rumors, talking about the latest reports, talking about the latest statistics, everything in between, breaking down the tape, all that. So if you're looking for that type of content, make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future live streams. Let's get into it. Latest update around Jeff Hafley. And shout out to everybody in the chat. Appreciate y'all jumping in here. Make sure you hit that like button on the way in. So when you get to this point in the coaching cycle, right, and I've followed the Packers since 2003, pretty close, really started to dive in deep about 2009. So got a few years under my belt here. Not perfect, farthest thing from it, but you kind of get used to how these cycles unfold, right? You have, what we call Black Monday, right? Obviously, where coaches get fired immediately following the regular season. That kind of starts the wheels in motion for the coaching carousel. And then, of course, you got the wild card round, and sometimes there's some coaches let go after that. In this case, Mike Tomlin stepping down. Obviously, John Harbaugh was fired after Week 18, the regular season. Now, Matt LaFleur and the Packers, they exit in the first round of the playoffs. So you start getting a couple rumors here or there. Are they going to sign a contract extension? Where are they at in the process? And then you start to get more and more things kind of unload. What I try to look at this time of year, and particularly this week, you still got the divisional round going on. I think it's safe to say there's a good chance that none of those coaches will be let go that made it to the divisional round, right? So the last firings, moving on, all that stuff kind of finishes out this week. And then, of course, you've got all the interviews taking place. I like to dive into the betting odds, right? Like, okay, what is Vegas saying in terms of what will be the next head coach in which spot, right? So specifically, let's talk about that with the Jeff Hafley situation. All right. So the betting odds currently, I just checked it a few minutes ago before we went live. Bet Online, okay, is the site we use. I like to use random sites and get multiple, viewpoints. The Miami Dolphins next head coach odds per Bet Online is Jeff Hafley leading the way at a plus 150. I don't think anybody's blown away by that. We kind of feel like that's the spot he's most likely going to land in. Now, the other one that was mentioned was the New York Giants. It sounds like John Harbaugh is leading the charge there in the Giants. Now, with Bet Online, I don't have it pulled up right now. I might be able to get it back up here. Probably not. Let me see here real quick. Bet Online. Okay, yeah, here we go. See if I can get it pulled off to the side here. I want to see where the Giants head coaching thing is right now. Yeah, so here's where Jeff Hafley sits in the Giants head coaching hunt. You guys know, we kind of looked at that as that might be the potential landing spot. They were interested in Hafley early, it sounded like. Hafley's from that area, so that would make a lot of sense. Well, as it sits right now, John Harbaugh is minus 500 to get the Giants head coaching job. And just taking a quick glance, those are the best odds of any coach to land in any spot. As a matter of fact, it's the only coach that has negative minus 500. Okay. So, I mean, you're talking about really, really good odds. So it sounds like John Harbaugh is running away with that Giants head coaching job. A second on that list is Stefanski at plus 200. Then Chris Shula and Jeff Hafley lands on that list as the 6th best odds at a plus 2,000. Okay. So Jeff Hafley, there are no other spots, to the best of my knowledge, where he breaks the 1,000 mark, the plus 1,000 mark. So this is most likely the spot for Jeff Hafley if he gets a head coaching job. Now, the other candidates here, Chris Shula, plus 300. Kevin Stefanski, plus 450. Mike Tomlin, plus 700. Clint Kubiak, plus 750. And John Harbaugh, plus 1,000. That doesn't mean John Harbaugh wouldn't be the best fit. It's just simply saying way less likely that he goes to Miami than he would like the Giants or somewhere else. Right now, again, Hafley doesn't break the plus 1,000 mark for any other head coaching jobs. At least for now, that is the best chance scenario. If he doesn't get the job there, good chance he ends up back in Green Bay. I wonder, and this is strictly speculation, I wonder if behind the scenes, Ed Policy is trying to get an answer out of Matt Quick for a discounted price for Matt LaFleur to be the head coach. Plus, we want you to change this, and this on the staff. We talked about that in the earlier show with the Adam Schefter news break. And if you guys missed that, go back and watch that show. You can find the video here on the channel. We went live just a few hours ago. So I'm wondering if he's kind of Ed Policy's pushing that. And if Matt LaFleur bucks, has he already talked to Jeff Hafley behind the scenes? Did he go to Jeff Hafley and say, hey, look, if this don't work out with Matt, we want you to be the head coach here? That's a possibility, right? That makes a lot of sense. That makes way more sense than John Harbaugh, I believe, or any of the other coaches that's been mentioned, right? So I wonder if that's kind of already in place in the background. Again, I have no inside information. I want to get your all stake in the comments as Packer fans in here. What do y'all think about that scenario? Do you think there's a backdoor deal in place there with Jeff Hafley? Or do you think, no, that's bad pool, they would never do that? Maybe you feel that way, right? So with that being said, that's kind of where we're at with Jeff Hafley. Now let's talk about where his defense ranked. Why is he getting all this buzz, right? Here is where they sit in terms of the defensive rankings. Scoring defense, Jeff Hafley and the Packers finished 10th best in the league. Yards per play allowed, which is essentially, rushing and passing defense combined together on a per play basis, which I feel like is the most important statistic when determining how good a defensive coordinator is outside of scoring defense, right? They're 7th in yards per play allowed. Yards per rush attempt allowed, 10th in the league. Yards per pass attempt, 8th. So you're probably wondering, why did we give up all those points down the stretch then, Clayton? Forcing turnovers, we finished like 23rd in the league. That's the bad number there. Right now, we had dropped interceptions. We had, missed opportunities in that regard. I think we would all agree that number should be higher. There were opportunities to pick the pass off. We just didn't get it done. Who do you blame for that? Do you blame Hafley for the players not coming down with the pick? Do you blame Goody because the talent ain't good enough? You tell me. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about that? So that is a key statistic we didn't mention here. That's the only thing that really brings the Packers' defensive rankings down a touch is the lack of turnovers. And obviously the points they gave up down the stretch, which over the course of the year, they played really, really good. We know when Micah went down, when Devontae Wyatt went down, the wheels kind of came off, right? And we also know that in the game against the Bears in the second half, Edgerrin Cooper exits that game, the wheels really came off. So do you want to blame Hafley for not being a good enough coach to get the job done? I can understand that. If you're more like me, like, hey, what do you expect him to do without arguably the 3 best players on his defense? That's kind of, I lean towards that as opposed to the aforementioned, right? So with that being said, that's kind of where we're at on Hafley. It sounds like, guys, Miami is probably the only shot. Now, I want to say this, not the only shot, the most likely shot. If they go a different route, and let's say they go with Chris Shula in Miami, and Hafley continues to interview like he's got scheduled, and he knocks somebody's socks off in the interviewing process, and anybody who's heard Hafley speak at press conferences this year, I think we would all agree, he's probably going to absolutely crush a job interview, right? There's a chance one of those he could go skyrocketing to the top. We may not even hear about it, and all of a sudden it's announced. The Cardinals hire Jeff Hafley as their head coach. The Titans hire, you know what I mean? That could happen. I want to make sure that we know that possibility is still on the table. Now, if we bounce down here, I put Anthony Campanile has entered the chat. Okay. Tom Pelissero tweeted out, the Miami Dolphins requested an interview with Jaguars defensive coordinator Anthony Campanile for their head coaching job per source. So with that being said, Hafley's already interviewed, and then they requested an interview with Anthony Campanile. And if you guys don't know who Camp is, Coach Camp was our linebacker coach last year. When the linebackers took the whole defense took a huge step last year, but it was real quick. He got poached to Jacksonville as their defensive coordinator, and you've seen him really turn around that Jacksonville defense fairly significantly. So Anthony Campanile comes in and interviews for this job. He's got ties to John Eric Sullivan just as much as Jeff Hafley does. They both spent the same amount of time with Jeff Hafley and the Packers organization. Now, Haf was there this year, so one extra year, I could say. But I wonder if John Eric Sullivan's looking up going, yeah, we like Hafley, but man, I wonder how much Anthony Campanile made a difference in this defensive coaching room. Maybe they go after Coach Campanile. Now, it is worth mentioning that Coach Campanile was lower on this list before that job interview was mentioned, okay? I don't know if the numbers have changed or not. I'm going to hit refresh and double check real quick. So this was before that interview was announced. And as we check the numbers, Anthony Campanile is still plus 1,600. So he has the lowest odds of any coach that's mentioned of the 13 coaches that Bet Online has odds for getting the Miami Dolphin coaching job, okay? A head coaching job, I should specify. So Anthony Campanile throwing his hat in the ring, does that change things up? Probably not a whole lot, but the fact that he's got ties to John Eric Sullivan like Jeff Hafley does, I think that's worth mentioning, okay? Just put that in the memory bank, right? So with all that being said, let's shift gears now and talk just for a second about Mike McDaniel. You guys know I've been pretty vocal about Mike McDaniel. I would love an opportunity to have Mike McDaniel as your offensive coordinator in Green Bay if they decide to keep Matt LaFleur. Hell, if they decide to go with Jeff Hafley and they move on from Matt LaFleur, maybe you bring in Mike McDaniel to be your offensive coordinator there with Jeff Hafley. Would that be what Jeff Hafley does? I don't know. Maybe he's got coaches. Maybe he wants to change the offense completely. That might be the approach. Now, maybe Ed Policy would step in and say, no, we don't want to change everything completely. Let's kind of keep the structure in place. That's where things get really shaky in Green Bay. If Matt LaFleur does not come back, and again, it's a big, huge, giant if, okay? If he doesn't return to Green Bay and you decide to change the offensive scheme, now we're talking about a little bit of a setback, right? Like, okay, you got to these offensive players are now got to learn a new system, a new scheme, blah, blah, blah. If you bring in someone like Mike McDaniel, the structure's already in place, right? So that's worth mentioning as well. I wanted to kind of give you guys an update there. Pro Football Talk, they tweeted out Mike McDaniel, Arthur Smith, they both have interviews with the Titans Wednesday for the head coaching job. Okay, now keep in mind that obviously Mike McDaniel was a former head coach in Miami. That's the reason that vacancy is there, and John Eric Sullivan takes over and looking to fill that void. Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh. Okay, so Arthur Smith coming down as the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh to interview for the job with the Titans as well. To me, it feels like Mike McDaniel probably not going to get a head coaching job. I want to know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think that Mike McDaniel's going to get a head coaching job or not? Because maybe this is just wishful thinking on my part, right? But that's kind of one of my guys that I would want to be the offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers if you could kind of shake things up and make a change in that direction there. So let's see what Nick Swain says here in the chat. If you fire Matt LaFleur, hire Hafley with McDaniel as OC, McDaniel does well. He gets poached. Then what? Oh boy. Let's troubleshoot it real quick, Nick. I'm glad you brought it up, man. That is a fascinating question, dude. Again, here's what he's saying. He's laying out a timeline or a kind of hopping in the redneck time machine here and going forward and saying, what if this happens? What if you do fire Matt LaFleur and you trade Matt LaFleur? Either way, Matt LaFleur don't come back. And you have Jeff Hafley become the head coach. Okay, we got that. He'll probably promote from within either Derek Ansley or DeMarcus Covington to be his defensive coordinator. All right, let's set that to the side. On the offensive side, you bring in Mike McDaniel to be your offensive coordinator. Okay. Let's say Green Bay goes to the playoffs again. They take the next step and they have an awesome offense next year. Let's say that happens. If it does, Mike McDaniel gets poached next year for a head coaching job. Then what do you do? I was always taught, don't worry about a problem you don't have, because you're going to waste a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort, worrying about sometimes resources, worrying about things, worrying about problems you don't have. But man, Nick, that sucks. It sucks to think about that, right? And you guys know I'm very, very adamant that as a fan, I want my head coach to be offensive minded. Adam Schefter said that earlier when he was talking to Jen Latta on ESPN radio. He said that Matt LaFleur is an offensive coach and they are held in much higher regard than defensive coaches in terms of being head coaches, right? So with that being said, I don't know, man. It just kind of confirmed for me, like, okay, that explains why I want an offensive-minded coach at head coach. That's why I feel like our best option is probably to stay with Matt LaFleur. But it's going to be really, really interesting to kind of see how everything unfolds. And we got offensive line that's going to be shuffling up big time. I mean, big time, guys. I mean, I heard Brian Balaga talking earlier on Wildy and Tausch, and he made it sound like now listen, if you let Rasheed Walker walk in free agency and you cut Elton Jenkins, what are you going to do on offensive line? And my argument is I thought the offensive line was bad this year. Like I don't think anybody looked at Elton Jenkins like he was the same player he once was, right? Is he a bad football player? Probably not. But when you start diving into the offensive line, I feel like if you bring in other pieces, that's an improvement, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but anyway, that's interesting though, Nick. Thank you for bringing that up. Let's see what else we got here. There was something else too here. Nick McSwain says constantly rotating OCs is the worst thing you can do to the team. It really is. I mean, who was the quarterback they mentioned? He's had, I think it was Lamar Jackson. Was it Lamar Jackson? I can't remember who it was. There was a quarterback they said the other day has not had the same. No, it was Philadelphia. It was Jalen Hurts. As much as Packer fans like to bash on Jalen Hurts and this thing, he's got a Super Bowl ring. He's played good football, I feel like. He hasn't had the same play caller since he's been in the league, I think they said. I think it actually goes back to college, as a matter of fact. He's never had the same play caller 2 years in a row. Think about that. That's just absolutely wild, right? Double C494 says, hire Matt LaFleur as OC, of course. So there you go. You go back and you try to poach Matt LaFleur to be your offensive coordinator, right? There you go. The thing about Matt LaFleur, too, and I know you're somewhat joking there, Double C, but if you let Matt LaFleur go, he's going to get swooped up like that. He's going to go to the top of the head coaching candidate list. I personally think Matt LaFleur would leapfrog John Harbaugh for the top head coaching. And you say, how can you say that, Clayton? We haven't seen Matt LaFleur coach a veteran team since he was winning 13 games every single year, right? And then if the argument is, well, he couldn't win the big one, that's right. We had punts blocked in return for touchdowns to lose the game. When the organization, the team refused to give him the resources to pay Darren Rizzi to be a special teams coordinator, we went the ultra cheap route. I can't remember who our special teams coordinator was at the time. I know it was mentioned on Wildy and Tausch today. He's no longer in the league. So do with that what you want, right? Let's see what DJ Schultz says. We have too much young talent on O-line for so many penalties and dumb mistakes. The young part's the part I have a problem with, DJ. That's the downside to having a young group of players. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to make penalties, I think we've got a talented group to a certain extent. But I mean, when you say a young talented group, I'm trying to think like Zach Tom, stud, right? Absolute stud. Rasheed Walker, good pass blocker, not so good run blocker. Depending on who you talk to about Anthony Belton, I wasn't that impressed with Anthony Belton. And I kind of checked the ego during draft time and like, listen, we've got him significantly lower than other options on our board, but I'm going to trust Goody because Goody found Zach Tom, right? Goody found Rasheed Walker in the 7th round. Goody knows what he's doing. When they signed Aaron Banks, I said the same thing. Aaron Banks or Goody knows what he's doing. He drafted Zach Tom. He drafted Rasheed Walker. He knows what he's doing. We'll be okay. And both of those, I feel like, were underwhelming this year. Now you got to give Anthony Belton time to get better, right? He's a rookie and he changed positions. Surprise, right? So I don't know, man. I don't have as much faith in our offensive line evaluation after what's happened. Now, hearing Bulaga talk earlier today, he's like, Matt LaFleur ran a wide zone boot scheme, wide zone boot scheme. You go and you sign Josh Jacobs, and now you change it. He said duo used to be their changeup. They would go wide zone, hit smack them with a duo as the changeup. Now we're going duo, duo, duo. I could probably count on one hand how many times we ran a true outside stretch zone run this year. We may have went B to C, but this, C to D, true outside wide zone with boot off of it, we got away from it. Why? You built the running game around Josh Jacobs's ability. Why do you do that? Goody signed Josh Jacobs in free agency, so you got to put your players in the best position to do what they do good, right? I think has a lot to do with it, if that makes sense. Let's see here what Greg Taylor says. Clayton, the line was bad because we didn't have center, and Goot brought Banks instead of a true center. Killed the O-line, period. Yeah, I can't argue with it, man. Can't argue with it. If they had gotten Drew Dahlman, just kind of what we were clamoring over here, and again, this is hindsight. I got it. I mean, it really isn't hindsight. We talked about it on the show. You can go back and watch the show, and we were like, yeah, let's go sign Drew Dahlman at center, and then Elton would be at left guard. Whether he plays well or not, then you're making the same decision on whether you want to move on from it. But at least you got one of those spots shored up. Elton didn't play very good at center this year. And then, of course, he goes down with an injury, and now you're playing most would consider a backup caliber guard as your starting center in Sean Ryan. And listen, I tip my cap. I think Sean Ryan did as good a job as he could. I thought he did better than I expected. I expected kind of the whole thing to fall apart completely. And at least you were still top 5 in passing in terms of yards per pass attempt, right? So, but when it comes to Sean Ryan, again, you're only as good as someone's willing to pay you. We'll see what his true market value ends up being in free agency. He's an unrestricted free agent. But Sean Ryan's number in terms of market value that's attached to him is $6.5 million per year. To me, that's not a starting center, right? It's not a starting guard either. It's kind of maybe it's the worst starting guard on a team, right? It's not just a bottom of the line minimum contract backup material type contract. But again, what's starting money? I mean, Goody went out and paid Aaron Banks, the full contract was $77 million, but we know that that wasn't the real number. It was really a one you could get out of it after that. And that's why I was okay with it at the time, because trusting Goody and his potential ability to evaluate offensive line play, it's like, okay, when you look at the structure of the contract, you can get out of it after 1 year. Like if you move on from Aaron Banks at the right time, you go from a $24.8 million cap hit this year, and you end up saving $4 million overall. You got to absorb a $20 million cap penalty, right? That'll be $20 million against the cap for him not to play for you, but you're still coming out $4 million in the good in terms of how it affects the salary cap this season. So, man, the thought that Aaron Banks might be $24 million against our cap this year makes me want to throw up on my keyboard. I ain't gonna lie, man. So I'm with you, Greg. I think that's a very, very good observation there, man, for sure. Just kind of looking through. I think we got it pretty much caught up. I don't want to go too long here, guys. I just want to get you guys that information, the latest odds on Jeff Hafley. It sounds like going through the rest of the offers, and again, interviews can change things, but as we sit right now, if we could somehow, some way drum up some rumors on Jeff Hafley so that the Miami Dolphins don't want to hire him as their head coach, he'll probably be back in Green Bay. So just something to think about there. I keep going back to what Micah said yesterday too, or the day before, whenever it was. Micah Parsons said he ain't going nowhere. And I'm like, now I'm starting to think, does he know something we don't know? And that's when my gears got to turning like, is there some kind of backdoor deal in place for Hafley if Matt and the team can't come to an agreement? I don't know. Again, strictly speculation, but I'm curious to know what you guys and gals think in the comments. Let me know if you're watching this back later. How do you feel about the situation? Do you think Hafley gets the job in Miami? Do you want him back as the head coach? Maybe you would prefer Jeff Hafley over Matt LaFleur as the head coach. Let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you're notified when we go live in the future. We'll be back a little later to talk some more player evaluation in terms of the market. We're going to hit Malik Willis and Quay Walker at some point. That's the plan. We'll keep our eye to the streets here. I'm going to hit refresh one more time just to make sure no new information is dropped while we were live. I'm going to try to get better at doing this when we do these random live streams. Latest news around the league. Falcons are going to interview Antonio Pierce this week. There's some player information. Marcus Freeman almost got into a fight with a wrestling coach. Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good here. So, yeah, like I said, we'll go live if we hear anything else, guys. Appreciate y'all jumping in here on a whim. If you would, hit that like button on the way out. We will see you guys shortly. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack Go.
There we go.
We're out.
Bye, guys.